I am muted. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the AC Transit and Oakland Department of Transportation Public Information Session on the International Quick Build Project. My name is Claudia Burgos. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs and
各位
Community
晚上好，
Relations.
欢迎参加 AC Transit。
Oh, Bonnie, can you please mute here on Zoom?
Oh.
Thank you. Before we start the meeting, we have several housekeeping items to get our non-English speaking participants into their correct language channels. Once we start the presentation, the interpretation will be simultaneous, so please bear with us as we get through these initial instructions. If you have called in to the Zoom phone line and require Spanish, Cantonese, or Vietnamese language support, we're going to ask that you please dial into our phone lines for Spanish, Cantonese, and Vietnamese. Randy, you can go back to the first slide. I'll let you know when you can move forward. Thank you. I'm going to ask the interpreters to please provide the phone numbers and the access codes to participate in these languages. So I'm going to start first with our Spanish interpreter, Claudia. She's going to be followed by our Cantonese interpreter, Bonnie, who will be followed by our Vietnamese interpreter, Tiffany. So Claudia, please provide the instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos. Para participar en esta junta en español, a favor de esperarse para nosotros encender el artículo de interpretación, ya que esto se efectúe, ustedes van a ver un globo terráqueo, es un icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla. En cuanto yo termine estas instrucciones, el intérprete cantonés o chino va a dar las mismas instrucciones. Ya que este globo terráqueo o este símbolo de mundo aparezca, ustedes pueden hacer un clic en ese icono y ustedes van a ver en la pantalla la selección del idioma español. Favor de seleccionar el idioma en español y de esa manera ustedes pueden disfrutar de esta junta de una manera simultánea. Si ustedes necesitan el servicio de interpretación en español y han llamado a la junta Zoom por medio del teléfono, entonces ustedes van a tener acceso en español. Pueden colgar y pueden llamar a este número telefónico. El área es 844-854-2222. Repito, 844-854-2222 y el código de acceso es el siguiente. 1213095. De nuevo, código de acceso 1213095. Muchas gracias. Estamos a sus órdenes. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Claudia. Bonnie, can you please provide the same instructions in Cantonese? Bonnie, we're not hearing you here on Zoom. If you can make sure that you are unmuted.
各位晚上好，欢迎您参加 AC Transit 和 Oakland 交通部关于国际大道快速建设项目的公共资讯发布会。我们将于今天晚上6点钟开始。如果您需要中文翻译服务的话，麻烦您拨打电话844-0414，使用代码598821。重复一次，你可以打中文免费会议电话收听中文翻译。电话号码是844-0414，使用代码598821。谢谢您。
Thank you, Bonnie. Tiffany, if you can provide the instructions in Vietnamese.
Xin chào quý vị đã tới tham dự cuộc hội thảo tối ngày hôm nay của thành phố Oakland, khi mà chúng tôi đang muốn nói về một cái chương trình rất là quan trọng xây dựng lại được cái con đường ở ngay International. Và trong cái buổi hội thảo ngày hôm nay, nếu mà quý vị nghe cái cuộc hội thảo này bằng điện thoại thì quý vị có thể bấm cái số điện thoại là 844-875-7777 và sau đó quý vị sẽ đánh cái mã truy cập sẽ là 2866445. Và một lần nữa chúng tôi xin lặp lại, nếu mà quý vị tham dự cái cuộc hội thảo này bằng điện thoại, quý vị có thể đánh vào cái số là 844-875-7777 Mã truy cập sẽ là 2866445 để có thể nghe được thông dịch bằng tiếng Việt. Xin cảm ơn quý vị rất nhiều đã tham dự cuộc hội thảo ngày hôm nay. Thank you so much. Back to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Tiffany and Bonnie and Claudia. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Once again, before we begin, we have a couple of additional housekeeping items for tonight's meeting. Randy, if you can move to the next slide. First, closed captioning is available by clicking on the CC icon in the Zoom screen banner labeled closed caption. You can select your closed caption language by selecting my caption language, then select the appropriate language. For participants that want to listen to the meeting in English, once we turn on the interpretation, please, actually, we're going to ask that you just stay here. English speakers don't need to do anything with the language. Let's move to slide number 3, where I'm going to turn it over again to the Spanish, Cantonese, and Vietnamese interpreters to provide these instructions in those languages. So Claudia, if you can provide the instructions here on closed captioning and the Zoom globe for interpretation.
Sí, como ustedes pueden ver, para subtítulos en el idioma de su elección, usted puede hacer un clic en el icono aquí en la parte inferior de su pantalla, casi a mano derecha, donde dice CC y donde están todas las opciones. Y de nuevo, para obtener interpretación en el idioma de su elección, entonces haga un clic en interpretación y ya usted puede seleccionar el idioma en el menú que se les va a lanzar. Muchas gracias.
Bonnie?
感谢大家参加我们今天晚上的会议。在会议开始之前呢，让我们大家花点时间来过滤一下今天晚上会议的一些重要的事项。首先，你可以通过点击在荧幕表中上有显示字幕的 CC 图标，你可以看到字幕。另外呢，你也可以选择我的字幕语言来做选择选项，那你要选择你喜欢的语言，也就是所谓的中文。对于如果你想要用英文收听会议的与会者呢，一旦我们打开翻译的 channel 的时候，你就可以转到地球图标，在语言选项上选择英文。目前我们还没有开启地球仪。那谢谢。
Để có phụ đề chi tiết bằng ngôn ngữ, bạn hãy chọn nhấp vào biểu tượng CC trong trong biểu ngữ. Và để phiên dịch bằng ngôn ngữ, bạn chọn vui lòng nhấp vào biểu tượng phiên dịch và chọn cái ngôn ngữ từ cái menu. Cảm ơn quý vị rất nhiều. Back to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Tiffany. So Tammy, if you can now please turn on the interpretation feature in the Zoom screen banner. Everybody should now be seeing a little globe. I see language interpretation available. So we'll give the interpreters a moment to move over to their correct channels. Anybody who needs to listen in a different language, please select your language, your appropriate language from the menu that's going to pop up there. I'm just going to give everybody a moment here to get to the right place. Okay. All right, Randy, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to talk here a little bit about how we're going to handle the Q&A portion of this meeting. If you're watching this meeting on Zoom, you may type in your questions anytime during the meeting using the Q&A tool. Raised hands via the Zoom platform will not be called on. Those accessing Zoom on a computer or a smartphone should use the Q&A feature to ask questions. Phone participants in the Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese language lines will have an opportunity to ask their questions with the assistance of an interpreter when we get to the Q&A portion of the meeting. Now, Randy, if you can move to the next slide. With these instructions in the different languages, just hold there for a moment so folks can just take a look. They've heard this in their language via the interpreters as well, since we're now moving into simultaneous interpretation. You can move to the next slide. Just spend a couple seconds there. And the next one. Okay, and the next one. So thank you all for your patience as we work through ensuring that our non-English speaking neighbors can also fully participate in this meeting. For tonight's meeting, we're going to hear an overview on the International Quick Build project. We will talk about next steps, and then we'll move into a Q&A session, again, using the Q&A function in Zoom. I'm now going to introduce Randy Durenberger, Principal Engineer at Kimley Horn, who has been coordinating the design treatments and the project planning efforts for both AC Transit and the Oakland Department of Transportation. Thank you, and Randy, the mic is all yours.
Great, thanks very much, Claudia. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for this public information session on the International Boulevard Quick Build project. We'll spend the next 20 minutes or so to review some of the existing safety features currently along International Boulevard, and then talk about new treatments that will be implemented along some segments of International Boulevard as part of the Quick Build project. I'll go through some sample exhibits so you see what the treatments will look like, and we'll also provide some comments about enforcement activities and close with our project timeline. Then we'll move into the question and answer period. This AC Transit and OakDOT funded Quick Build project will enhance safety treatments along International Boulevard. There are numerous existing curb-to-curb safety features along this corridor, including closely spaced stations to reduce walking distance, 8.5 miles of pedestrian lighting, 450 high visibility crosswalks, 515 pedestrian access ramps, 8 miles of bike lanes, median refuge and curb bulb outs for pedestrian refuge, 35 new traffic and pedestrian signalized crossings, and bus-only lane legends, signals, and signs. Unfortunately, dangerous speeding and reckless driving continues to impact this entire corridor. You can see some of those violations in the table on the right. Now we'll talk more about the AC Transit Quick Build project, which focuses on measures to discourage improper use of the bus-only lane. Recognizing International Boulevard is a high injury corridor, the Oakland City Council took the opportunity to leverage AC Transit's initial investment to also address some of the persistent safety issues that have been experienced and documented for many decades, including severe crashes and fatalities involving pedestrians. With a project budget of $2.1 million, International Boulevard will have some type of treatment on 75% of the corridor from 14th Avenue to 107th Avenue. The Quick Build project is underway now to urgently address unauthorized driving in the bus-only lane and speeding. We selected specific segments within the corridor that will receive initial treatments. To select these specific segments, our team reviewed crash and violation data to identify locations that could benefit the most from this project. The segments shown here in this list, like 15th to 17th Avenue, were selected because of a higher number of severe injuries, fatalities, observed lane violations, and a concentration of bus incidents in each of these sections. These selected segments formulated our preliminary project. This slide shows a summary of the types of treatments that will be installed in each segment, including pavement markings, signage, vertical channelizers along the roadway center line and lane line between the transit-only lane and general lane. We also plan to have a couple of segments that will include red paint within the 15th to 17th and the 42nd to 55th Avenue segments. The right column indicates which treatments already exist along the corridor and which treatments will be new. I'm going to go through each of these treatment types to give you a visual of what will be deployed. The first is additional pavement markings, which you can see arrows and bus-only examples that already exist at some locations on the corridor, but not everywhere. This will help reinforce the allowable movements and use of each lane. The second is additional signage, including more speed limit signs, bus-only signs under the transit signal heads, and we also plan to add violation signs with fines. Simultaneously, ODOT is working with Caltrans to post 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs along the entire corridor that will also be installed as part of the Quick Build project. This additional signage will emphasize the restricted use of the transit lane and reinforcement of the speed limit. The third treatment is yellow centerline channelizers. These images are examples of where channelizers have been deployed in other locations in Oakland. This treatment will discourage illegal U-turns near median islands. Next is lane line channelizers. These are each just a single post and will be placed on the lane line between the bus-only lane and the general purpose lane at 15-foot spacing. This treatment will discourage the public from improper use of the transit-only lane. The last treatment is red paint. You may have seen red paint has been installed on Broadway in downtown Oakland, where the entire transit lane is painted red. Red paint was not deployed during the initial Tempo BRT installation for several reasons. At the time, red paint treatment was still being considered an evaluation and not a standard treatment. Caltrans was also not on board with using red paint as it required special design exceptions and waivers. Also, maintenance responsibilities could not be fully determined at that time. We're considering several red paint treatments for the Quick Build project shown in the images on this slide. The image in the lower left shows a shorter segment of red paint only at the beginning of the block. The image in the upper right shows a solid red line adjacent to the existing solid white line. And the image in the lower right is a 4-foot wide red line along the middle of the bus-only lane. The application of red paint treatments is still subject to securing approvals from Caltrans. All of these treatments that we discussed tonight are part of the preliminary project and will be evaluated after implementation at the specific locations on the corridor that we previously mentioned to assess which treatments successfully discourage drivers from entering the Tempo BRT lane and enhance safety along the corridor. That assessment will include before and after collection of volumes in the transit lane, illegal U-turns, and left turns from the bus-only lane. During that evaluation, the public will be encouraged to provide local feedback on the effectiveness of these treatments, what treatments are working and what's not working. We will use this information to inform our assessment for the next phase that will expand the effective treatment coverage to other parts of the corridor or implement additional treatments. It's also important to note that these treatments, in particular the channelizers, have been designed to comply with Oakland Fire Department access requirements. Now a note about some enforcement activities. Police enforcement has been an effective tool, but the corridor length and frequency of violations has made it difficult to capture all violations throughout the corridor, and more enforcement is needed to continue making an impact. With road violence so problematic across the city, ongoing police enforcement is critical to stem that tide. The Oakland Police Department has been conducting focused traffic stops on International Boulevard, and with additional staff, they've been able to increase their presence since the beginning of COVID. Preliminary data shows that over 600 stops were made on International Boulevard in the first 6 months of 2023, which is approximately 20% of all non-dispatch, non-intelligence-led vehicle stops in Oakland. OPD also recently announced additional enforcement resources would be dedicated to the Fruitvale area, including along International Boulevard between 29th and 38th Avenue. CHP is providing additional enforcement for the City of Oakland on the high injury network corridors where severe and fatal crashes are most concentrated, including International Boulevard. For automated speed enforcement, Assembly Bill 645 was just signed by Governor Newsom last month, thanks to the support of Oakland leaders and partners across the state. This bill authorizes Oakland and 5 other cities in the state to conduct a pilot using a limited number of automated speed enforcement systems restricted to certain areas. Oakland is authorized to deploy automated speed enforcement at no more than 18 locations citywide, and city staff will be engaging more with residents to identify locations where those will be placed. The bill contains a number of restrictions, however, on camera placement. For instance, cameras cannot be installed on state-owned roads and highways. So portions of San Pablo Avenue, International Boulevard, and 42nd Avenue cannot be included in the pilot. Currently, there are forward-facing cameras on board the Tempo BRT buses, which are only used for unlawful stopping and parking in the bus-only lane at this time and are not used for moving violations. In 2024, AC Transit plans to augment these forward-facing cameras with artificial intelligence. So as we wrap up this presentation, here's a timeline of the project. We completed the preliminary design in the middle of 2023, and with ongoing community outreach, we're currently finalizing our design to include 75% of the corridors we previously described. We expect to complete the design by the end of this year, and we plan to be in construction in early 2024. After the treatments have been installed, our team will evaluate the effectiveness of the treatments starting in the middle of next year. And that's the time when the public will have the opportunity to provide feedback on the effectiveness of the treatments. That evaluation and your feedback will inform what additional locations should receive treatment as a follow-up project in 2025. And if you have additional feedback regarding the details, you can send those to planning@actransit.org. That concludes our technical presentation, and Claudia, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Randy. So we will now transition into our Q&A session. But before we do so, I'm gonna again take a moment to provide some housekeeping instructions for all of our participants. As you can see here, if you're participating online with a computer or on a smartphone, please use the Q&A. You can click the Q&A screen on the banner. Sometimes this option is available under More or Participants, depending on which version of Zoom you have. Please go ahead and type your question or comment in the Q&A tool. For Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese speakers who are calling in on the free phone lines, we're going to ask that you dial *61 when we move into Q&A. We will know that you have a question, and you will be called on by the last 4 digits of your phone number, and you will be able to ask your question with the support of an interpreter. So Randy, if you could just click slowly through the next few slides, which have the same information in other languages. Thank you very much. And we're going to ask our panelists to get ready to come on camera. And one more slide, Randy. And with that, Randy, I'm going to ask you to take down the PowerPoint. And I'm going to ask Will, Megan, and Sean to please turn on your cameras. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves in that same order. Will, Megan, and Sean, you're going to help us with the Q&A portion of this evening's meeting. So Will.
Hello, Will Buller, AC Transit Traffic Engineer.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Weir. I'm an Assistant Director with the Oakland Department of Transportation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Maher. I'm the Citywide Communications Director at the City of Oakland. I'm here to help with questions you might have that would fall kind of outside the core expertise of the folks leading the meeting today.
Okay, thank you all. I've got the first question here. This one's going to go to both Will and Megan. You guys can probably tag team. So back in the June ILC meeting, staff spoke about doing an evaluation of speed tables or cushions on International Boulevard. It's now been 6 months, and I'm hoping that you can update us on the results of that evaluation and which speed cushion design has been agreed upon for installation on this project. I will let you guys decide who wants to go first.
Well, I'll start, and then Will can fill in on anything I miss. Thanks for this important question. AC Transit and OCDOT have begun meeting on the issue of speed cushions towards an improved understanding of how speed cushions as a tool can be designed to advance both our transportation safety and transit first goals. And we're working towards having an improved understanding of how they could be implemented in time for the next phase of our International Boulevard improvements. Will, did I forget anything?
No, thanks, Megan. That's great. I just wanted to mention that we have been making great progress. We're working together. And, you know, what we learn from this first phase will help feed any kind of information we would need also to determine best location and implementation for that in the future.
Okay, thank you both. Will, the next question is for you. Why not paint the entire bus lane red instead of just 2 sections?
So standard practice right now is to paint the entire lane red. That's what you see along Broadway and in many other locations. And it's industry standard, and it's actually an emulsion process, sort of a slurry. It's extremely expensive. And so, as you can imagine, as it's used, the tires wear out the paint, and then it becomes very costly to repair. And so we're investigating some alternative possibilities to help save in maintenance costs and still provide the same effectiveness.
Thank you, Will. Megan, this next one's for you. Why won't OCDOT prioritize repaving San Leandro and the connection to 12th Avenue, that might be 12th Street, as a quick fix to create a better car corridor, not around heavy walking population, which can decrease car usage on International and its bus lane?
That's a really interesting question. You know, we've been for International Boulevard safety, we've been really focused on our partnership with AC Transit on what we can deliver quickly, you know, to improve conditions on the corridor and really focused explicitly on the corridor. Though I like the, you know, kind of the spirit of the question as we work towards an improve more comprehensive understanding of the future, looking to, you know, where are we paving? We have an equity-driven paving program that's paving miles of streets a year and working to incorporate safety improvements. So that's something we can definitely take back to our staff to look into for the next phase.
Thanks, Megan. Next question, also for either of you. How long are single post channelizers expected to last? They seem flimsy and cheap. Is it worth risking the safety of the public to save a few bucks?
Do you want me to give it a first shot and then you can fill in?
That sounds perfect, Will.
Yeah, we realize that the channelizers can be run over. We're using channelizers that have been designed for that, not only flexibility, but with a joint. And so they've been engineered that way. We hope that they'll be able to handle it. If they don't, we'll have a contractor on board to replace them, and they are easily replaced. And then there was a second part of that question, Claudia, if you could repeat it.
I'll just repeat the whole question. How long are the single post channelizers expected to last? They seem flimsy and cheap. Is it worth risking the safety of the public to save a few bucks?
I can add on to that, Will, if
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the channelizers that we're choosing for this project are also based on ODOT's experience with this type of improvement in Oakland, and the ones that we've chosen in other locations in the city have stood up to over 5 years. So we very mindfully are choosing posts that have been rigorously tested to stand up under these types of conditions.
Thank you both. Will, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say that we do expect them to be successful in deterring traffic out of the bus lane. They have been successful in many other locations doing similar things.
Thank you. Rama, I'm going to ask you to come on camera and introduce yourself, because I think this next question is probably going to be for you and Megan. So why don't you introduce yourself first, and then I'll shoot you the question.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rama Pochirazu, Executive Director of Planning and Engineering.
Thank you, Rama. And so the question is, why were many safety designs, such as curbs between lanes that were in the original design, not built?
The question refers to original design. Original design doesn't have any curbs. Maybe they're referring to the environmental suggestions, recommendations in the environmental document of the curbs and everything like that. The design, the curb line, the treatments of lane delineation has to be in compliance with the fire code and first responders requirements to access the corridor. And that's the reason why at that moment, we don't have any hardscape treatments, and this quick build project is proposing a flexible post to be in compliance with the fire code.
Megan, I don't know if you want to add anything. I'm going to put out this next question, which is related, and maybe you can add here. What specifically are Oakland Fire Department's design requirements that are limiting additional safety measures?
Sure, I don't have anything to add to the previous one, but I can respond to the fire department's design requirements. And first, just want to say that, you know, for this project, we worked really closely with the fire department for a delineator design that supported the access requirements, and that the requirements are specifically around how they're ensuring essentially that their trucks can deploy the equipment that they need to be able to respond and support public safety in the event of a fire. So that's something that there's very specific specifications with respect to what's referred to as outriggers, and that are required to balance their trucks as they deploy ladders. It's very context specific work, and ODOT's been making a really good progress with the fire department towards meeting both public safety and transportation safety goals.
Thank you, Megan. Randy, this next question is for you. You're still here, right? There you are.
Yes.
Okay, will these treatments impact or take away parking along stretches of this corridor?
No, we actually don't have any intent to block or remove any parking. This will all the treatments will be either along the center line of the roadway where the two yellow lines are, or the solid white line in between the bus lane and the general purpose lane. As well as some minor signing and striping as we discussed, but no removal of any parking.
Thank you, Randy. Will, this one's for you. With the plastic bollards, how do you see making sure store truck deliveries don't stop the flow of traffic to get around them by using the bus lane?
No, thanks for the question. Yeah, in some cases, that may happen, but right now our priority is safety and illegal use of the transit lane. As we evaluate and note special cases as is identified, if that occurs, then we can address them. We would direct any kind of deliveries to be using the loading zones that are adjacent to the business, either on a side street or an adjacent block or even the very block they're on, if they don't have any on-site parking.
Thanks, Bill. Megan, this one is for you. How will the proposed solutions prevent the type of speeding that is fatal in pedestrian crashes? Signage and marking are already deployed in many places on the corridor, and channelizers are only relevant to turns.
Sure. So I think with respect to our immediate quick build, there's a couple ways that, that immediately come to mind in terms of how the channelizers could address speeding. One is that a lot of the egregious speeding that is observed on International is in the bus only lane. So implementing channelizers to deter private vehicle speeding and driving in that lane is one way to address speeding on the corridor. Also, we know that speeding and illegal turns and turns also contribute to severe and fatal crashes. So again, channelizers that slow traffic and deter those types of turns are another tool that could help address that. That said, we also know that more is needed to address the speeding conditions on the corridor. We'll be learning from our evaluation for this project and committed to working together for what more we could do to address any persistent speeding on the corridor.
Thanks, Megan. This next one, I'm going to start with you, Will, and then Randy, if needed, to add additional detail. Can you go into more details about the bus lane separation channelizers? Will they have a large base that will be uncomfortable to drive over, or will they have a small base that makes it likely that drivers will just drive over them?
There are various types of bases going to be I shouldn't say too many, but a couple of different kinds, and I'll let Randy address that. But they aren't just simply a hole in the ground with a hook or a small little location of install on the base. It's an assembly, and so it is a little more deterring to vehicles. And Randy, I'll let you go ahead and elaborate a little more on that.
Yeah, we kind of have three maybe major different treatments that we'll be looking at. One is just a standalone post by itself. The second has a curb portion on either side of the post, and then the third one is an interlocking curb, which is continuous. And it's a great question, and certainly something that we would want to hear some feedback from, and it will be part of our evaluation to see which of those may or may not be effective. And that's really part of the purpose of this. If we find that certain treatments are not effective in what we're trying to do, then that would not be part of the solution for our next project. So you'll see some different treatments out there, and that's what we'll be evaluating to see what's effective.
This actually segues nicely into the next question, which will go to you, Megan. It starts with a statement. I don't think these pilot changes will be sufficient to prevent deaths and serious injuries. What criteria will be used to determine that more is needed? On what timeline will more robust safety fixes be provided if the pilot does not achieve that?
So evaluation has been a really critical piece of this quick build project. And so we'll be collecting pre data and data after the installation, looking at factors including traffic volumes and speed, as well as more qualitative information regarding driver behaviors, as well as collecting information on damage to the channelizers, and also developing mechanisms for the public to report to us, so we can understand what are the impacts and effectiveness of this implementation. With respect to doing more, that's something that both agencies are already working on in terms of the next phase and what additional treatments in addition to the quick build can be implemented. And Will, I don't know if there's more that you'd like to say about that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that based on what happens after the evaluation and with the implementation of the first phase, it'll inform us as to the best locations where to deploy whatever it is we deem is most appropriate in the future. And so I think that's a systematic approach is usually the most prudent and effective for the long run. And it educates the public as well.
Thank you both. It looks like this might be our last question. And this is for you, Megan. Where has Oakland used these flexible posts and seen them over the last 5 years? Where has Oakland quickly replaced destroyed flex posts? Most that I see, such as on the nearby but lower traffic Embarcadero bike lanes, were destroyed quickly and never replaced.
So a couple locations that have been around for a number of years include Seminary between Overdale and Sunnymere, as well as Jackson between the I-880 on-ramp and 7th Street. And we hear you regarding maintenance concerns, and that's why, as Will described, that as part of the project, monitoring and maintaining the posts will be a part of that pilot.
Okay, looks like we have one more question that's come in. If I'm hearing correctly, it's the fire department's fault for AC Transit not able to have a dedicated, separated, protected lane. All the plastic posts will be driven over and just contribute to blight. I have hope, but living in Oakland, the only way I see this working is if we have a serious design change. How about Megan, you want to take a stab?
I mean, what I can speak to, I wasn't staff during the original design of BRT, but what I can speak to now is the city's work with AC Transit, moving forward. And as I described earlier, we worked with the fire department on what we could implement quickly with the quick build, which is what we focus on tonight. And we'll be, continuing to work on together towards what other hardscape improvements we can make to improve safety conditions on the corridor. And, just given the significance of the corridor for the city, that will continue to involve a lot of interagency coordination with our respective agencies, with the fire department, with Caltrans, with the police department, as we work towards improving conditions on the corridor.
Thanks, Megan. Rama, is there anything that you want to add on this question? I know you've been close to this particular topic along with Megan.
No, Megan covered it pretty good. Yeah.
All right, give me a second, folks. Let me just check the chat here. Maybe because I said that was the last question, a few more came in. Robert, I'm going to need you to help me out here. Okay. What efforts were made since the implementation of the BRT to solicit feedback from the community on its effectiveness or concerns? Rama, you want to start? I'll read it again. What efforts were made since the implementation of the BRT to solicit feedback from the community on its effectiveness or concerns?
I'll jump in just at first here, Rama, if you don't mind. I think
Sure.
the project that we're doing right now reflects that. We've been in tune with the public, and we're trying to respond as quickly as possible to address concerns along the corridor. But go ahead, Rama, please.
No, like you said, this project has been opened up during the pandemic time, and we've been continuously monitoring and collecting the data on the incidents and seeking input from the community and also from our operations and everything. So this project is the result of all this, like Will was saying.
Thank you both. Okay, I've got two more here. This one's going to go to Megan. Is a goal of this project to remove International Boulevard from the high injury corridor?
So OCDOT is a part of the city's Safe Oakland Streets initiative, which is led by our city administration and is a partnership with the police department and our Department of Race and Equity. And a goal of that work is to eliminate traffic deaths in the city of Oakland, including on International Boulevard. And this work is definitely in support of that larger goal.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, this is now the last question. Will the crosswalk light time lengths also be looked at to help improve safety? Will or Randy, one of you guys want to take that?
The crosswalk, what? I'm sorry.
Light time lengths. Sorry, I don't think I read the whole. I don't think I read that whole sentence.
The lighting at
The
crosswalk?
timing for
Oh,
crossing.
so signal timing that includes pedestrian crossing times. Is that what I hear? And
That's
is
what it
that
sounds
part
like.
of the project? It's not part of this project. No signal improvements or signal timing changes are included as part of this project. They may be in the final project, or at least will be looking at that or addressing that.
Megan, that may be a separate question for the city, right? In terms of determining pedestrian crossing times and things like that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can, I think it's definitely worth exploring as part of the next phase.
All right, thank you both. So it looks like that's probably going to be our last question. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us this evening. This is oh, Sean, go ahead.
Thank you, Claudia. I noticed a couple questions earlier about how folks who weren't able to make it tonight might be able to see the video from this meeting. I just wanted to see if we were able to address that before we close out the questions.
Thank you, Sean. The questions are moving fast, so I can't keep up with the Q&A. Yeah, I think we can work together to figure out maybe the city, maybe we can use one of the city channels to upload the recording. The meeting is being recorded, and so we can work together. We will have all of your everybody's contact information just by virtue of Zoom function. We can gather all of the emails that joined the webinar tonight, and then we could figure out a way to get the recording to folks. We can work together on that, Sean.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, making sure that I'm not missing anything here. Lots of I'm checking to make sure we're also keeping track of the people that are on the phone lines. And I'm seeing Stephen, Ryan, or Claudia S. Let me know. I'm not seeing any indication that there's any questions from the phone line. Okay, Ryan, thank you. I see none. Just want to make sure that we do a check there before we close out. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. So again, on behalf of the City of Oakland's Department of Transportation and AC Transit, we thank you for joining us this evening. Again, you can ask additional questions or provide additional comments via email. You can send an email to planning@actransit.org. Again, that is planning@actransit.org. You can also visit the AC Transit website. Just do a search for Quick Build or look under projects in the planning section of the AC Transit website. Again, thank you for joining us this tonight, and you all have a good evening and be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.